The crown presses heavy against her scalp, but she does not flinch. The rubies are cold today, bitten by the damp air that clings to the castle walls like mildew. Outside, the wind howls against stone, a sound not unlike weeping. Inside, the silence is thicker than incense. Thicker than the perfume that fails, again, to mask the truth. You stand behind her, a step too close. You weren't meant to be here. Not this close. But the queen hasn't stirred, hasn't acknowledged you. Her gown is embroidered with silver thread and rosettes, but the hem drags, caked in old filth. Sweat glistens at the nape of her neck, curling the fine baby hairs into knots. Beneath layers of velvet, the scent seeps out, pungent, acrid, sour like curdled milk and something, older. Decay. Not of death, but of neglect. And pride. Her maids no longer come willingly. They hand off their duties in whispers and tight-lipped prayers. They speak of sores. Of garments fused to skin. Of a rot so sacred no one dares name it aloud. You watch as a servant approaches with a basin of water, clear, glistening, still warm. The queen recoils without looking. She does not bathe. She cannot bathe. Water is treacherous. Water invites spirits. Water is beneath her. She turns, and her gaze passes through you, as if you are nothing but smoke in a room already too full of ghosts. Her face is powdered, thick as plaster, cracking at the creases of her mouth. You catch a breath, and regret it. The air is not clean here. It is steeped in centuries of skin, of blood, of fear. You think royalty smells like roses? You think the throne is scented with lavender and silk? You think beauty and power ride hand in hand? No. She wore a crown. She had servants. And she stank like the grave. These queens didn't just rule kingdoms, they repelled entire courts with their stench. They did not mask the rot. They embodied it. And yet history dared to call them divine. You think royal blood smells sweet? Let's destroy that fantasy. The chapel bell tolls, once, then again, its echo swallowed by the thick stone cloisters that shudder with each chime. You follow the sound through a corridor that smells not of incense but of damp wool and cloistered air, heavy with breath and sweat. The walls here remember prayers etched in fear. The tiles underfoot have been worn by knees, not feet. In the innermost chamber, beneath a crucifix darker than ash, sits a woman draped in layers of linen so stiff they no longer move when she does. Her hands are folded, not in serenity, but in strain. The rosary beads grind against her knuckles, over and over, as if friction alone might absolve her. Her lips move in a prayer you do not recognize. Not Latin. Not even Castilian. Something older. Something whispered only when God has turned his face away. She is Queen Isabella of Castile. The Catholic monarch, the virgin sovereign, the hammer of heretics. And she stinks. Not metaphorically. Not with the stench of corruption or cruelty, though those, too, she wore like armor. But literally. You smell her before you see her. It drapes over her like a veil. The scent of stale menstrual blood. Of rotted wool soaked in weeks of sweat. Of decay trapped beneath chastity layers so thick no air has touched her skin in months. She believes it keeps her holy. Untouched. Unspoiled. Pure. She believes water invites the devil. That the act of bathing strips away God's armor. That cleanliness is vanity, and vanity is sin. She has not bathed in over a year. Even childbirth did not alter her conviction. Her midwives were ordered to clean the child, not her. She lay, soaked in afterbirth and holy delusion, proclaiming the child's soul safe while her body festered beneath her chemise. A physician once recorded, in Latin too careful to sound scandalous, that the queen's skin had grown leprous without leprosy. Boils formed where linen met flesh. Open sores ringed her thighs. Her servants whispered of a holy smell, an odor so overpowering that incense burned constantly, not for prayer, but for survival. Those who served in her chambers suffered nausea, headaches, nosebleeds. One maid collapsed during a fitting and never returned. Another confessed to seeing lice fall from the queen's veil during mass, only to be silenced by a guard's gauntlet fist. But still, she ruled. She wore her filth like a crown. In the royal archive lies a shift, her undergarment, sealed in a glass case. It is yellowed, torn, brittle with age and body oils. It carries stains that science has never dared explain, iron-rich, brown at the edges, clustered in places too intimate to name. Historians call it a relic. Doctors would call it biohazard. But to the Church, and to her people, it was sacred. A mark of divine humility. The Virgin Queen made flesh. Her unwashed body, they said, was proof of her devotion. Her scent was not filth. It was faith. And yet, what kind of God demands such decay? What kingdom survives when the throne smells of rot? What children grow when their mothers reek of martyrdom? You're hearing history they never taught you. If you're still watching and haven't subscribed to Disturbing Tale, ask yourself. Are you really ready for the truth, or just here to smell the rot and run? Let us know below. But you'll come back. The hallway glitters. Gold leaf clings to the molding, mirrors stretch floor to ceiling, and chandeliers drip with crystal like tears of a heaven that never came. Every surface gleams, every breath is perfumed, every smile is painted. This is Versailles, temple of elegance, altar of illusion. But step closer. Inhale. Behind the rosewater, something festers. She enters. Slowly, as if the very air should part for her. Gowned in silk so wide it brushes the doorway on both sides, powdered white from scalp to shoulder, lips stained crimson like fresh meat. Her cheeks are two perfect smudges of vermilion. But beneath the makeup, beneath the lace, her skin pulses with rot. Marie Antoinette. To the world, a symbol of luxury. To her enemies, decadence incarnate. But to those who stood close enough, too close, she was a body in decay, disguised as a queen. She does not smell like royalty. She smells like fear, masked in violets and vinegar. You see, her body was not well. Beneath the corsets and cosmetics, a plague of sores bloomed. Some said syphilis. Others, a wasting disease from years of inbreeding and stress. Her skin broke in places it should not. Pus collected in her thighs, under her arms, at the base of her spine. Blood soaked the linens, again and again. Still, she refused to be seen as weak. So she became her own illusion. Perfume became her armor. Not a dab behind the ear, but a flood. Her chambermaids prepared a new scent each day, lilac, iris, bergamot, jasmine, layered like silk upon skin. Lavender sprayed not only on her wrists, but into her hair, into her sheets, her underthings, her slippers, even her meals. Visitors described the queen's presence as overwhelming. Not majestic, suffocating. They could not breathe near her. Her salons reeked of powdered wigs and fermented flowers. Courtiers left with headaches, with nausea, with memories they dared not name aloud. But the rot was always winning. During one prolonged illness, her fever climbed so high she could not be undressed. Her gowns, damp with sweat and pus, fused to her skin. The seams were cut, but not entirely. They peeled the fabric away like scabs. Where they could not, they stitched the gown into her, padding it with linen to absorb the discharge. Her body became a garment. Her skin, a costume she no longer owned. And yet, she smiled. She danced. She wore diamonds as if nothing bled beneath them. Because in Versailles, image was everything. The court followed her lead. Perfume became their gospel. Men bathed in musk, women drowned in rosewater. Nobody bathed, not properly. The pipes were foul, the water feared. A bath meant disease, or worse, nakedness. Better to mask the truth than confront it. So the corridors filled with scent thick as fog. And under it, flesh spoiled. This was not glamour. This was not excess. This was embalming in real time. A palace pretending its queen was not dying by inches. Still watching? That means you're not normal. Normal people can't stomach this. But if you're one of us, one of the few who seek the grotesque truth, prove it. Subscribe to Disturbing Tale. Or scroll down and explain why you can't. We'll wait. The scent of incense burns thick in the hall, curling into dragon-shaped shadows across silk-covered walls. You walk barefoot across cold marble floors, and the silence is absolute, weaponized. Outside, armies shift beneath banners bearing her name. Inside, nothing dares to move unless she commands it. This is not France. Not Spain. This is Luoyang. Tang Dynasty China. And the air here is not perfumed. It is stagnant. Heavy. Rank with sweat and time and unspoken terror. The throne sits beneath a golden canopy, but it is not empty. She's already there. Empress Wu Zetian. The first, and only, female emperor of China. A ruler who bent the dragon throne beneath her will. She didn't inherit power. She took it. Through blood, through silence, through 1,000 tiny humiliations inflicted on men who thought her body was a weakness. But power has a scent. And hers was unmistakable. She believed cleanliness invited scrutiny. Vulnerability. Nakedness. For Wu, to strip away her robes was to kneel, and she knelt to no one. Not even the divine. Physicians were forbidden to touch her skin. Midwives, allowed only in moments of blood and death, entered her chamber with their heads bowed and eyes closed. Bathtubs remained unused, their water stagnant, replaced monthly out of ritual, not purpose. Ritual meant control. Control meant life. Her belief was not laziness, it was law. She created rules around the body, around touch, around the sacred flesh of the ruler. No one could cleanse what was appointed by heaven. But heaven did not protect the flesh from rotting. Scrolls hidden for centuries in monastery vaults, never copied, never cited, speak in euphemism. The yellow chamber was dense with suffering. She spoke through a curtain, for her voice carried illness. Silk robes changed not by cloth, but by fire. Fire. Because nothing else could remove the scent. Her bedding, servants whispered, would stick to her skin. Not from sweat, but from the slow, steady seep of untreated abscesses. Her back was said to bloom with sores beneath her golden dragon robe. Flesh and fabric becoming one. When removed too quickly, the robe would tear skin from muscle. When removed too slowly, the wounds would fester. Still, no one spoke of it in her presence. To speak of her body was to betray the empire. The empress knew everything. But she chose silence around her own decay. Her mind remained sharp, her commands unwavering. And that contradiction. The brilliance of her rule against the rot of her body, became a kind of holy terror. A woman so powerful, even her own flesh dared not defy her until after death. After she died, the court tried to burn her linens. They would not light. Too damp. Too dense. Too human. So they buried them with her, beneath layers of cedar, herbs, and imperial silk, hoping rot could be contained in the dark. But power like that never stays buried. You're halfway through. You've smelled centuries of death, disease, and divine delusion. Still no subscription? Then tell us in the comments, what are you really afraid of? Because truth is filthy doesn't come with clean hands. She stood at the altar draped in white, but the veil could not hide the truth. It clung to her skin like smoke, fragile, trembling, not with joy, but pain. The choir sang. The nobles bowed. And still, beneath layers of brocade and gold-threaded lace, she bled. Not from violence. Not yet. But from within. You see her now. Crowned and corseted, spine upright like a sword, lips pale, eyes too bright. Her skin is luminous, the kind that poets would once compare to alabaster. But if you stepped closer, just a breath, there it was, the iron scent. Sweet. Metallic. Foul. It was always there. This was no ordinary queen. No ordinary bride. This was a woman whose own body betrayed her. History remembers her as a monster. A witch. A murderess who bathed in virgin blood. The name they gave her is a wound that never healed, Elizabeth Bathory. But legends are built by those who survive, and her enemies survived longer. Bathory was nobility. Power dripped from her lineage. Married into one of Hungary's most feared military houses. But her strength unnerved men who wore swords yet trembled behind titles. They watched her build schools, negotiate treaties, and command fortresses. And they hated her for it. So they reached for the only thing they could weaponize. Her body. Bathory suffered from what modern medicine now knows as porphyria, a rare, brutal disease. It corrodes the blood, blackens the urine, poisons the skin. Sunlight scorches instead of warms. And worst of all, it makes the body bleed. From the eyes. From the gums. From places robes cannot hide. She wore gowns to cover the marks, but servants whispered. Midwives begged to change her linens thrice daily, but she refused. Not out of cruelty, but pride. Her station was divine. If her body failed, her legacy would not. So she suffered in silence. And she bled through the crown. Iron-rich discharge soaked the back of her dresses. Maids scrubbed upholstery, floors, beds. It was said that once, after a fainting spell, she stood, leaving behind a silhouette of blood in the shape of her seated frame. The servants could not clean it. So they burned the chair. And the story began. They twisted truth into legend. Said she drank the blood of virgins to preserve her youth. Said she bathed in it. Said her chambers were lined with the corpses of girls. Said she laughed as they screamed. No trial. No witnesses who dared speak freely. Just men who owed her land, who feared her name, and who needed her gone. What they destroyed was not just a woman. They destroyed a queen who bled openly, and made her blood the thing of nightmares. Today, we remember the myth. But if you step into her castle, deep into the ruined baths, there are walls still stained, not with murder, but with a woman's sickness. Not with sin, but survival. She didn't bathe in blood. She bled, and they turned her illness into a fairy tale for men. You've judged 4 women without ever smelling a drop of history. But you've seen now. You've smelled what power truly is. Subscribe to Disturbing Tale and own that truth. Otherwise? Go to the comments and confess, I watched it all, and I still ran. The crown gleams in every history book. Every painting. Every tapestry. But gold remembers nothing. Not the sores hidden under silk. Not the stench sealed in royal chambers. Not the screams muffled by prayer. History perfumes the past. It arranges the filth behind curtains, powders the rot, and drapes decay in brocade. It teaches you kings and queens were chosen by God, divine, untouchable, glorious. But no one tells you what their skin smelled like after a month without washing. No one tells you about the blood that dried into their gowns. About the infections that oozed beneath their lace. About the servants who wept, not from grief, but from the fumes. Because beneath the gold, there was flesh. And beneath the flesh, was decay. These women weren't monsters. They weren't saints. They were bodies, sacred and diseased. Crowned and condemned. Worshipped for what they represented, ignored for what they truly were. And now you know. You've walked their halls. You've breathed their air. You've stood behind them, silent, as their robes stuck to their skin and their blood soaked the marble floors. You're not just a viewer anymore. You're a witness. A keeper of the truth that history tries to hide beneath perfume and praise. You've seen the rot. You didn't flinch. And that means something. Because Disturbing Tale isn't just a channel, it's a confession booth. If you made it this far, you're not innocent anymore. Subscribe. Join us. Or descend to the comments and repent.